Aries, welcome to my channel. Aries, as I mentioned in this Solar Eclipse Initiation video and podcast, on 10th of June at 6:52 a.m., Sun and Moon will come together as a solar eclipse at 19°47' of Gemini, along with North Node to plant a new seed. We would have 6 planets physically parallel and anti-parallel in the sky with the karmic nodes, like the whole universe is conspiring to bring something to pass. In this moment of eclipse, after a period of reconsideration and confusion, we are meant to see things clearly. It may not yet be time to start anew or announce, or external messaging might still be delayed as the ruler of the eclipse would be retrograde till 22nd of June, but the initiation of the new thinking, new mind begins. A new thought form is born, and from that thought form we create our forward path of growth. North Node is where we stumble, we get up, and yet we start again, cause it's our path of forward growth of this lifetime. It's our karma of this lifetime. We must grow through and grow towards. Our soul incarnated to go through this process, and it evolves through various parts of our life, going through karmic growth every 19 years. We wouldn't find peace walking away from this growth. This is the last 6 months of this karmic growth in our area of our life, which has to do with mindset, thinking pattern, communication skills, and commercial skills, which mingles with the lunar eclipse we just had, and its theme was release of old life purpose for Aries. Today we would not so much focus on this one event alone, but more on what these next 6 months are supposed to teach us. What kind of evolution our mind is undergoing, where one kind of thought form is being released and a new one which would serve us for the next 19 years is born. We never stop growing, but Gemini eclipses take our mind and knowledge for a leap in matter of days and months, which would normally take many years to come to pass. If you're old enough, this kind of growth you would have experienced back in 2002. The axis of freedom and wisdom is being activated for us Aries, as over the next 6 months, one adventure ends and another one begins. As promised, we would go deeper into all of this as it's relevant for the rest of the year for your sign. My name is Charu and I'm your host on this journey. So let's begin. Aries, the 10th of June solar eclipse focuses on initiation of opportunities linked to communication, learning, commercialization, and it involves feeding your mind and active interactions with others, speaking, writing, publishing. It's practical, clever expression of your sharp, flexible, and curious mind, quick thinking, media marketing, networking, teamwork or social interaction, constant shift, move, or change are all integral part of the outcome. It would require that we connect information together from different sources and make sense of it intellectually as much as possible, keeping it without bias or personal beliefs. It's a sharp learning curve, and you might already be on that curve, so you might decide to add another level of growth in it by taking a course or thinking of commercialization of your skills, or you might decide to acquire a new skill altogether, as that's more commercially in line with where the world is moving to. We are sometimes woken up to the opportunities which were always in our immediate environment, but we were blind to them, or the information that was already available, or the people who are right where we are in the neighborhood or in our immediate circle of daily interaction from which we can commercially grow. Little adventures around the house, exploring your neighborhood, or a short trip, or even a walk every day opens up some ideas. Interactions with others open up new ideas. We are prompted to express, explore, investigate new things, and create a physical output over the course of next 6 months in form of a written, spoken, or visual presentation of an idea that is seeded in our mind during June. Now, this idea was initially cultivated at the start of the year because this eclipse has already been activated at the start of the year. The key activation dates of this eclipse and of this new idea were 3rd of January and 7th of April. These are the key milestones when you might have worked on this idea already. But now, through a process of reconsideration and back and forth, that seed is in some ways reseeded in a new format. The eclipse of 10th of June makes a positive aspect with Aries. It adds to our commercial value, it adds to our communication skill set, and it adds to our mindset. And most of us will benefit from its fresh infusion of a new thought form, even though that will happen with a delay due to the retrograde of the ruler of the eclipse. It would most positively be felt by people who have planets around 20 degree of Aries, plus or minus 3 degrees. So close to around 17 degree to 23 degree of Aries rising sun and moon stand to benefit the most from this eclipse. Or if you are an Aries sun who's born around 9th of April, again 3 days before and after, so around 6th to 12th of April born, would benefit the most out of this eclipse, but it is making a positive aspect with all of our sign. So we all have an opportunity to put down the seed and begin again in our commercial value, in our commercial skills, in our media skills, in our communication skills, and in the way we connect with others. Though the house of mind is going to be very active and busy, clarity is not yet there. Let me speak briefly about Mercury retrograde and what is the outcome of that we are expecting in June. Now, the house of mind is very activated. We have a lot of planets sitting there. So we'll be very busy in figuring things out because the mind has a lot to think about, but at the same time the mind is in a reverse gear in some ways. It is in retrograde mode till 22nd of June. It's reconsidering things, and we may not yet be ready to decide on a course forward, as there might be multiple choices possibly on the table that are to be considered. It's possible that old projects might have come back for rework here. Old parts of our brain and our knowledge center might be getting relit and retapped. Old acquaintances or friends or emails or messages might wake up some dormant part of our mind. Phone communication devices, vehicles, they would malfunction. They're all signs that we need to slow a little bit down before we move forward. Travel delays, day-to-day communication or media activities slowing down or even suffering. Daily rhythm of life is somehow disrupted because we are being asked to focus on something else. We are trying to push through despite the hurdles instead of looking at what needs to be looked at. Miscommunication in a hurry are possible. But in this delay, we get a deeper perspective of what's needed if we allow ourselves to not yet rush in. It's almost like we are being prompted to see things differently. Think in a way totally different to our normal mode. There's a different part of our brain which is getting activated by the Mercury retrograde right now. Gemini eclipses are matter-of-fact eclipses, practically. They test the elasticity of our mind. How willing are we to adapt to the situation? With the information that we know now versus what we knew back in January or in April when the first seed was planted. It's very much about, can you teach an old dog new tricks? No offense in it, but it's about teaching an old dog new tricks. It's an evergreen grid of learning, and it makes us feel like a young mind, a reborn mind again in this process. although with a delay. We become a student of life again. We learn how to become more commercially viable, but it happens through trial and error. Apart from strong learning curve on communication skills, social media, selling, marketing, creating self-made wealth skills, we also embark upon new chapter in how to connect with others. As this would come through either reviewing why a project is not moving or through an actual miscommunication or misunderstanding with associates or with neighbors or with siblings. We during this period have to acknowledge the role others play in our life and how to get the best out of those connections or start new connections which are more in line with who we are becoming versus who we were. Our growth comes from connections, apart from the skills and our clever mind and communication skills. You might be working through something interpersonal, and it might require sort of a downtime or quiet time for thinking things through in June. Clever use of words and sometimes diplomacy comes to us once we accept the role that other people play in our life and the relevance of letting them in. And that is very important both in our personal as well as in our commercial world. So the diplomacy, the art of using the words, the art of conversation with them, once we accept the role of their presence in our life, with a deeper thought process, it will come naturally. It's an essential ingredient we need, especially if you are running a business, if you're creating a self-made wealth. People skills is one of the growth areas that we would need to create over the course of next 6 months. It's the next level of growth in it, for the next level of growth for your own life. So you have your eye on the next move, on the next level of growth, and for that, people skills or the art of relating to others, apart from commercial and communication skills and learning new social media, etc., that component is a key growth area which Gemini, solar eclipse, and the retrograde will initiate for us over the course of next 6 months. Physical way of connecting with others is also being reborn here. What e-devices, social media apps, transport modes you use to connect with others, or neighborhood you work in, or connect with, which is the local space, physical space you occupy in your neighborhood. The surroundings we have, because as it said, we become who we hang out with. So who we hang out with and which circles we hang out in. Similarly, the e-hangout, which is the space on the internet we occupy, like the site we have or the media accounts we have, and who are our viewers, who are our participants, what circles, what groups online we participate in. Those are all being reconsidered and refurbished for the next level of growth. They all influence our mind. They all influence our thinking. Physical movement of the body, walking, running, are also being considered, as Mercury also rules our health in our chart. So we might start a new routine to get moving further, to activate our thinking. I bought my first speedometer post the last Gemini Mercury retrograde. So the last Gemini Mercury retrograde happened in mid-2015. There are always lessons which carry forward from that. So there might be a new physical walking routine. Similarly, physical contracts, documentation. This is a commercial solar eclipse for us. So physical contracts, documentations, commercial ventures, self-made wealth ideas, media activity. There is going to be a rebirth in thinking about these things, and there will be confusion and delay because we are supposed to get something right there. double check stuff, stay flexible, do deeper work, rewrite, re-edit, rethink, reconnect, avoid arguments, make peace with a sibling, make peace with a coworker, make peace with your immediate environment or a friend. Slow down mentally so you can see what we might have missed out, and that will definitely be the theme till we come to the other side of Mercury retrograde, which is after 10th. Even after 10th, things will be slower, but after 10th, we start forward planning instead of looking back. There is no rethinking, there's no thinking about the past, there's thinking about the future, paving the way for the future which will happen. Let's look at a brief history of both the eclipses and Mercury retrograde so you can look back at your own chart and at your own life to see what events in the past might have happened, which will come up as themes right now for reconsideration or rebirth. This so-called rewiring of our brain, which is happening through Mercury retrograde right now in June, as I mentioned, also happened mid of 2015, specifically May or June of 2015. Mercury retrograde always carry forward the lessons. That is the nature of the cycle. You would always have themes which were either not fully resolved or they were resolved and there were lessons from that we were supposed to carry forward. You would always see them pan out and move forward to the current moment. That's why I always recommend to look at the emails, communications, photographs, anything which can remind you what was going on at that time of a Mercury retrograde. It gives immense amount of information and you can save yourself a lot of back and forth. May, June of 2015, check what happened in terms of communication, in terms of interaction with somebody, in terms of a trip, in terms of a communication thought process, a mindset change. Sometimes there's a negative thinking pattern which is exposed during Mercury retrograde in Gemini for Aries, and that might have come to surface through a discussion. There could be a miscommunication with a friend which might have come to surface. Sometimes actual people from that time, actual issues or resolution from that time come back to the current moment. It could even be a leap you had made, a leap of faith or a decision you made about which field you want to operate in, what kind of commercial activity you want to be sort of working in. And now you might be thinking of the next level of growth on top of that. This eclipse, though, apart from Mercury retrograde, we have eclipse also this time. That time we did not have any eclipse in 2015 when this was happening. Now we have two things together. There's a karmic shift and there is rewiring. The eclipses which are happening right now in Gemini and in Sagittarius, they happen in the summer of 2002, so northern hemisphere summer. So that's May of 2002. So you could look back, if you're old enough, to May 2002. What was a new skill set, a new education that you had decided? It's normally a specialization we choose at that point in time. It could be you might be in school at that time or college in that time, and you might have chosen a field to go into. Or it could be if you were working at that time, you might have decided this is my line, and now that 19-year karma with that part of our brain is coming to an end. That part of the skill set is coming to an end. Or you could look to closer date to December of 2011. So winter of 2011 for northern hemisphere. That is when we might have made a further shift. It could be a shift in form of relocation. It could be a new adventure we had started at that time. And now that adventure is coming to a closure in some ways. So the themes of summer of 2002, which is May 2002, or winter of 2011, which is December of 2011, might give you clues of the actual shifts that are about to begin for the next 6 months in your life. But the May-June 2015 would have active lessons that we must carry forward to this chapter as well. This eclipse, solar eclipse, is not happening in isolation. We have a lunar eclipse to go with this solar eclipse. We just had a lunar eclipse on 26th of May, which will continue to evolve over the course of next 6 months as well, right in parallel with the new start. Lunar eclipse always closes something, releases something, completes something. So there's a completion with the rebirth, there's a completion with the new idea. So June is going to prompt us to see this new commercial communication idea of growth, but it's also bringing a closure, a completion to pass. And this closure or release or completion would not be fully visible till September. Karmic event in the first week of September would bring more clarity to what the 27th of May eclipse was supposed to bring. Or if you have faced a closure, something closed, something was released, and this is something that you thought was your life purpose and that has ended in some ways, or you had to close something, or you had to move out of a higher education. It's like a graduation which is happening. We are sort of at the moment of that graduation. So if you had to close something, release something, let go of something, the rationale of why, for what did we have to let go that, the clarity on that closure will only come in the first week of September. It is like one adventure must be let go. It has come to a logical end for another one to begin. It's a completion of a higher education, like a graduation from theory to practical, which is happening here. Culmination of a pre-qualifying exam, a travel of significance coming through, a legalization in a foreign country happening. So through visa or through relocation, we are closing on a new country, which will be home. A legal case coming to a completion. Publication, teaching platform, international business opportunity coming to a completion. But it happens with a release. Something needs to be given up for it. It could be an old adventure that needs to be given up. It could be a belief that needs to be given up. It could be a foreign connection with a person who's different from you, away from you. It could be a guru, it could be a mentor. It could be an older educational field that needs to be given up. It could be another level of specialization that needs to be given up. It could be globe trotting that needs to be given up. This is us sort of saying, universe, here I am, you tell me my path in some ways. It's us bowing to higher will in some ways, requiring a lot of trust in a path that is unknown. In the current moment, it could feel like a loss, like you have to give up something. But by September, we would see how something had to be lost to gain something higher. Again, none of these eclipses are in negative aspect with you. Both add to you. So even if something is being given up, it's like you have to trust the higher powers to give you a bigger plan. We are asked not to focus on why this is happening at this moment, but rather our growth is in focusing actively on the practical aspects, the skills required, the commercializations, the connection, the social media, our own personal view of our life plan, our life purpose is being asked to be released. What you thought you should be, that space needs to be left a little bit blank right now. And let universe decide the label. Let universe fill it up with possibilities of something higher and different, bigger than what you have imagined before. So open yourself up to the new knowledge, to the skills being imparted to you, and the life purpose, the purpose of it all, will show up as you progress. Don't try to pin down the plan here. Now I'm going to focus on the last 6 months of Gemini and Sagittarius nodes, some do's and don'ts, which are very important. I call it normally the road to success in some ways. So with the next 6 months. These are the last 6 months of Gemini North Node and South Node in Sagittarius for Aries. I'm listing our road to success over this time. Just remember, North Node is our soul's growth. We incarnated to learn these lessons. So we are not born with them. Be gentle with yourself, as we will, both of us, you and me both, would fall down and get up many times before we get it over the next 6 months. So be gentle with yourself as you go through this growth, so you don't back off from that plan. Focus on the practical steps versus every moment questioning how much you have covered the path. Where are we going? Whether we'll get there or not? All those larger questions, those bigger questions of the longer term nature of life's big plan and purpose are not in your and my control. So we need to release a little bit of control over our life purpose, and in some ways not be inquisitive about the longer plan, but be inquisitive about what we can do in it on a practical basis right now. Keep it light, practical, knowledge focused, being the avid student of life, moving away from big picture ideas to practical, simple expressions of what you can do in the now with what you have right now. Do not keep waiting for a big event to happen, something larger than life to hit you. Do what you can do with the smaller steps you are able to do right now. If you have an idea, you seem to love what you do, instead of waiting for that idea to blow up to a much bigger proportion, because it's going to seem too daunting to figure that out right now, use what you can think right now. Take some daily steps which are simple. Instead of thinking, what will it become this 10 years down the line? There is no, I mentioned this last year as well, there is no 2030 plan. There is a right now plan. And for 6 months, we have to focus on the now, what we have right now, what can we do with it right now, on the basis of what we ourselves can do. Trust your own intellect and what you know now. Don't keep waiting for all the answers to come through in some ways to start. Don't get lost in the theory. Don't wait for a mentor or a guru or a higher up to bail you out. Trust power of your own skills to move forward. Develop practical solutions using the knowledge you already have, like simple ways to monetize. If there's a huge reservoir of knowledge you have on a subject, instead of trying to use all of it somehow, just take out the relevant parts of it and create some practical solutions using that vast knowledge. Form a little network. Talk about what you know. Discuss with people in the immediate environment. Don't wait to be given a seat. Start interacting with people on the subjects you love to talk about. You would do it as a matter of fact versus being asked to be given a stage to do it. So we're moving away from being a person who waits to be asked to do something because they are a specialist or a guru at something, versus become a common student who likes to do what they do because they're excited about it. So they go and interact and intellectually discuss things. Don't wait for a podium to be given. Form your own little network and start talking about what you love to do and discuss with people. This is where we are walking away from preaching or teaching to a learning mode. Stop waiting for permission to do what you love to do. Don't overthink it. Just start doing. Make it simple for yourself. One of the most important things we're going to learn over the next 6 months is going to be a negative cycle of thinking. Because the most important thing this eclipse and this North Node in Gemini wants to bring out with South Node in Sagittarius is to release something which is deep rooted in our cycle of thinking. There might be a negative cycle of thinking that we are caught up in. We all have some of them. So have like a safe word for it when it begins. Stop it early when it begins. But to stop a pattern, you have to start a new pattern. So you have to interrupt the pattern to start with. You will know when it begins. You know when it begins. Read, read, read. This aspect is a blessing to expansion of our brain. And this is once in 19-year hunger of our brain, which is woken up. So feed it. It's amazing opportunity to learn. Learn the art of self-promotion. It's one of the more important things we're going to learn over the course of next 6 months. Learning the art of self-promotion, marketing ourselves. It's essential for self-made wealth. We have to accept that and stop feeling guilty about marketing ourselves. Make other people part of your solution and growth. Realigning this equation with other people is a key part of our learning. Instead of them being against us, them being for us. See what tools other people are using in your field and join hands with the ones that have the same wavelength as you. And sometimes our prejudice about other people stop us from mingling with them to start with on a more intellectual and objective basis. This is purely intellectual connection with people. Release the need to agree on opinions. Opinions is not what we are going to discuss with people. It will be intellect, it will be knowledge. We cannot convince somebody of our ideology. It's a false move. It will never go through. So let the success of what you do speak for itself versus trying to convince somebody about your ideology. To start with, do not make assumption. And I'm telling all of this to myself. I'm an Aries, Aries Sun and Moon. These are some very important points for us to progress forward. And North Node is opening us up for these lessons. It's sort of like our brain is open for rewiring right now. So one of the key things will be assumptions we make about what people think of us. It's the time sort of to not just detox ourselves or the prejudice we have about others. It's about removing those biases we think others have about us. Just asking them, keeping it simple. We are going to master the art of conversation here, where we ask and not tell, where we teach, not preach, where we ask more questions than the answers. We learn from others through this art of conversation and learn how to bring out the best part of ourselves in a conversation. We release the need to be right in a conversation. And we become a student again who is allowed to make mistakes, allowed to change their mind about who they want to be and what opinion or what thought process they have about a subject. We learn more about our own learning patterns here as we have evolved over the last 19 years. So when you're becoming a student again after a long time, your thinking patterns, your learning patterns would have changed. Maybe you are a visual learner now. Maybe podcast is how you learn more. Maybe it's the snippets which appeal you more rather than looking at a big book. Say yes to social events. If you have an opportunity, engage with activities of the neighborhood. Come out of isolation periodically if you can. Be social without purpose. You will get so much nuggets of pearls out of these interaction because our success will come through interaction with others. Seek out with courage a fresh mind and perspective. It's going to be tough. As I said, North Node is one we have not done yet. We are doing something new. So there will be false starts, there will be falling down and getting up. Be gentle with yourself in that process. Acquire information from many sources, verify it, share it quickly with your informed opinion without including your likes or dislikes. So we are staying impartial. We're keeping our judgment to ourselves when we are sharing an information. And this is a tough one where we are sort of asked to just express the facts instead of our perceived reality or with our opinions in some ways, because we are becoming a reservoir of information during this cycle. So channeling and delivering wisdom, knowledge, information to people beyond our personal experience as an impartial channel is very important here. Become the natural bridge between people of different cultures and customs, essentially. So there are different people, different cultures, different opinions, but you are the impartial one between them, essentially. Keep it light. Keep your sense of humor alive. This is your natural way of doing things, which is just being brought up to light. It's being brought up to the next level of growth. Keep it light, keep your sense of humor alive, your natural sense of humor that Aries have. Share your childlike enthusiasm and freshness with others. It's like a layer is being taken off. The layer which has formed probably because of interactions in the past, bitter experiences. We're sort of taking that layer off in some ways. Implement some inspired spiritual practices in your daily life with a playful wits about life and the philosophy of life is what you make it, having a fair crack at it, versus picturing ourselves as victim of fate in some ways. We have to give up that. As soon as that is a negative bias, as soon as that comes, we have to click and safe word and get rid of it. There has to be like a physical disassociation from that part of our thinking. Aspirations for public arena will go up during this transit, and they should. Artist, craft person, entertainer, business person, musician, actor, entertainer, comedian, media person, academic, journalist in us, it needs to come out. And as I said, for that to come out, you have to be impartial in some way. So there is both a prejudice against ourselves and about others in some ways, or about the world, that needs to be dropped for us to come out like that. Just remember, this is a scattered energy. So we will go all over the place, and we have been going all over the place because North Node in Gemini has been here for 1 year already. So I mentioned this last year as well. Keep 2 or 3 things as broad goals. When you're sort of researching on something, you're working on something, keep a line of output for you so you can resurface to that output. What were you trying to get to when you were researching, when you were writing? Because you could get lost in over information and over communication. Your intuition, your heightened psychic and spiritual abilities will ring a warning bell when you're getting detached from your models or higher purpose. One of the key teachings of the next 6 months for us will be to know and recognize those signals which are ringing alarm bells when we are going on a wrong road, where we are venturing into fields or with people who are not ours. Either those interactions are too dark for comfort, or those interactions are too shallow and detached for relevance. You would feel it. Remember, the goal is to become an indiscriminate, unending source of knowledge and information without prejudice. A knowledge center, an intellect. And through intellectual objective exchange, you will help others who are of different opinions come together, and you will help them become clear about their own thought process. We are moving away from need for significance. I feel needed, I'm necessary, to I think and I communicate. I think and I communicate. I will also quickly address the pink elephant in the room, which is Neptune. Now, due to Neptune being so strong this month in the house of fears and hidden enemies, and it is squaring both this eclipse and Mercury, it's sort of creating a harsh aspect with our retrograde mind. And it's bringing out fears and hidden enemies that we didn't know before. And our cognitive abilities right now are compromised, and reactions would be primitive. So when this boogeyman comes out from nowhere, of fears and of hidden enemies, our primitive senses are woken up, which are of fight or flight. Because we cannot understand what we are seeing is real or not, what we have been aiming for commercially and in our skills is real or not. We feel in some ways disoriented. It's that feeling of being seasick, essentially. But after a while of being on the sea, you start sort of adapting to the ebb and flow of the waves, because it's the nature of the ride you chose. We chose to ride on the waves, so ebbs and flow are going to happen. As long as in that state of disorientation, we are not causing any self-harm, it's all right to feel lost for a while, which we will probably do this month. You though might want to ask during the season, why you feel so lost. Because the thing is, even if you find the elusive goal you are going for, you would still feel lost. Because it's never about reaching somewhere. Goals are always going to change. Even before you arrive at a destination, a new goal has already taken form. So it's not about reaching the destination, not being able to yet reach that destination which is making you feel lost. It's something else. Instead of trying to forcefully change your behavior when we feel lost by pretending to somehow know where we are going, why not in this specific moment we ask some honest questions from ourselves and treat ourselves with some amount of respect on this disoriented moment? We could give, another a chance when somebody else feels that lost. We don't say, yeah, it's just, we don't just, brush it off. So why for yourself? Give yourself the same respect you would give another person. Truly asking yourself why you feel lost on this journey. What patterns of subconscious thought forms are playing out? What self-sabotaging patterns are closing the doors shut even before anyone has said no to you? These are simple patterns. Like we go overeat or go to the fridge because we are actually just bored. So simple patterns are driving our actions. We are feeling scared of nothing working out our way because we just had a rug pulled under our feet. So the aimless wandering and this feeling lost in the wilderness of our mind always has a pattern behind it. Give yourself the respect to find the pattern. And we have done this before. We have been here before. Look at 2002 or more recently 2011. It's like when something is given to us, but then we do cast a shadow of self-doubt on it, or another self-sabotaging pattern makes us roam in the wilderness, wondering when we would get there. These are cycles which show up, and they show up to show us what underneath the surface runs our life. And it's usually our pattern, a repeated cycle of thinking. It's usually a feeling and an unmet need which essentially pops up. I recall a student who got through an institute, and she never, during this kind of transit, and she never thought she would. But that didn't remove her self-doubt. So she got through the institute. She thought she'll never get through it. It didn't remove her self-doubt. Now with that self-doubt, because she deeply still believed that she did not deserve that, unconsciously she made her whole experience in that institute so miserable that it ultimately became true. Because she had that unconscious bias against herself. You would need to be gentle with yourself, because as soon as you sort of criticize or blame yourself for a pattern, your ego or self-defense will immediately kick in. And I will not be surprised if right now it's kicking in and saying she's bullshitting. I do that myself. So this is very much a mind game. We are playing with ourselves in some ways, and it would seem like a distraction, but it's the key to move from past to future. Because we need to break that cycle by interrupting a pattern right here, in this moment. Gemini, Sagittarius nodal axis activation every 19 years for us, Aries, breaks a karmic pattern, which we were born with or we were conditioned and brought up with. It's comfortable, it's known, we seem to think it helps us, it had a purpose at some point in time, but it's not where our future is. Because past patterns only repeat past, they don't create future. So what is this distraction, which is the key? It's the 12th house, where Jupiter and Neptune are now focused. And we would continue to activate this house in 2022. It's the house of psychological complexes, moksha, peace, detachment from outcome, selfless service, isolation to think and process, yoga, meditation, all the practices that reconnect us to our soul away from the day-to-day troubles. This fighting our demons, fighting the hidden enemy within, is a key Neptunian theme we have been running since 2011, but now with Jupiter combining forces with Neptune, it's like this light has been shed on that pattern. And dare I say, there is going to be an acknowledgement of that self-sabotaging pattern. Jupiter is doing a very brief transit here. I have covered it in depth in the 2022 preview. We'll see it fully play out in 2022. Jupiter is trying to enlighten us here. It's trying to infuse faith in the unknown, trying to drive out that pattern and replace it with faith. It's prompting us, like the wise Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. Apart from substituting that belief, that self-sabotaging pattern with that faith, it is also helping us link our patterns with the triggers, because there's a knowledge of the trigger which is given. There's always a trigger. The trigger is an event which has happened, which creates that self-sabotaging pattern. It's like a series of events. It could be a fight with somebody. A trigger could be fear. It could be a person who you don't know is working against you, but they trigger you. And then that self-sabotaging pattern starts. A trigger which brings out fear, a trigger which brings out self-doubt, a trigger that brings out self-sabotage. What is it? For some, it's actually achievement. And for Aries, it's actually achievement most of the time. It's like something is given to us and we are about to get it, and the self-destruct button is pressed in panic because there's a belief that I cannot become that. I don't deserve that. Because Aries is a Martian sign and this pattern is so well hidden from us. We are blindsided by the event. So we were just about to get something and then we press that self-destruct button and we cannot see that we are pressing it, but we have pressed it. And then of course, the self-destruction happens, the self-defeating factor plays out, and then we find, because we are blindsided, we don't know that pattern of ours. We find an external factor or karma or God or someone invisible like luck to blame for it. This month, with both Neptune going retrograde, defogging us towards the end of the month, and Sun making a trine with Jupiter on 23rd of June, we have a good chance of catching our demon, catching ourselves in that act, catching our self-destructive pattern. It's important because you can change the course, change your specialization, change your job, change your country, change your friends, change your projects. But if that little guy is still sitting pretty inside in our head, he will grow and he will make sure that through fears, through unhealthy pattern, he recreates the same situation over and over again. I could have made this video 20 minutes less. I could have just spoken about the third house eclipse. It's an easy eclipse. You should join a course, learn a language, change your neighborhood, learn a new skill, streamline your social media app, get a new communication device, a new walking route, start a new creative writing or speaking project. All of those physical shifts, yes, they are all part of solar eclipse. But all of that is a waste for Aries if that demon is not caught. I'm telling you that out of my heart and love for you. It is not going to stop till you stop him. They would amount to nothing. Those changes, those shifts you will bring about, they will mean nothing if you do not address the pink elephant in the room called Neptune. Neptune in astrology is equated with loss of consciousness, loss of direction, loss of senses. But the thing most people miss out is that it's essentially there where we gently create the loss of what's not real. That boogeyman, that demon that is not real, is supposed to be let go as part of the Neptune transit. And you don't need to go to psychotherapists for it, though if you can afford it, this transit benefits immensely from therapy. But you don't have to. You can ask yourself those questions because our mind would be teeming with fears and phobias right now, and that pattern is about to re-emerge and it's not new. We probably always wait for another shoe to drop whenever we are trying to take a leap. But the question to ask yourself and potentially confront that demon is how many times those scenarios a minute your mind is planning have really come to true. Even if you don't fix anything, you would learn something new about yourself. The thing with demons is that they don't like daylight. The moment you consciously ask those truth questions, verbalize it, write it, discuss it, they stop having a power over you. In that loss of demon, you find peace, you find healing, you find the place you hold in the universe, even without being anyone. It's the state of Shavasana, corpse pose in yoga, for those who practice it, and in this transit, I highly recommend too. It's the Shavasana of yoga. Fight or flight is given a pause. Active thinking is given a break. We stand apart from our own thoughts, like observing them from a distance, seeing the play we ourselves create on the stage of life and our role in it without blame or criticism. From that place of objectivity, peace, and detachment, we bend and pay homage to our own demon and close by, as always, with Namaste. The divine in me bows to the divine in you and bids you goodbye for this time. He has done what he was supposed to do. He got us to this point, but there is no place in future for it. Like some might say, there is a place for putting fear of falling from heights. I don't agree with it, but maybe there is a place to put fear of falling from heights for a kid who does not have that natural instinct in himself. Yes, but once they grow up, you have to outgrow those fight or flight defenses. Like there are some chances we do need to take at a certain juncture in our evolution, because we have learned to walk and stand on our 2 feet. We would continue to live on the ground instead of scaling heights if we don't outgrow those patterns. It's the pink elephant in the room, and it's worth a distraction or a detour. So like a misstep, over next 6 months, we would need to work through this. It might mean we would need period of isolation, make spiritual practice a part of our practical daily life. It might also mean we might need to alone need some time during this period of hyperactivity to work on ourselves, on our personal growth. The fear of speaking up might be blocking our commercial success. Feeling what we are going to express is not valuable enough might be keeping our useful talents under the lid. Not recognizing your own hidden strength might be stopping you from growing in the outer world. All of these patterns, they come from underneath the surface and they're brought to the surface. They need to be handled and stopped in their root. That demon needs to be caught in its root. The themes of these eclipses, which will influence us in the next 6 months, are very similar for you, as being highlighted by Saturn square Uranus transit, which I have also detailed in my 2021 video. I would leave the link for you to review, as the aspect becomes also exact on 14th of June for the second time, asking us to review the rules of engagement with others, a social network platform, and how we balance the matters of self-worth and net worth with our need to participate in social evolution. This aspect, in parallel with the eclipses, is the next 6 months for us. This is the next 6 months for us, and we have to make it count. Good luck for that, Aries, and I'll see you in the next video now. Thank you.